be home soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kids.
Oh, we're streaming on YouTube. What's up, people?
Cool.
I need that trick now from Julian.
Oh, he told me how to do it. You press that little orange button in the middle.
Orange button. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Julian.
Okay.
Kindergarten is giving me Zoom tips.
Looks like we're up. Yep. There we are. Okay, so we can go. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Or maybe we should wait till officially 2:30.
Yeah, because we don't have an audience yet, do we?
No.
Maybe we never get one, in which case we should just chat amongst ourselves.
There's one person watching now, but I think it's me. All right, I'm gonna play this.
It's very slow and incomprehensible.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
And when you get to do that, when more people know how to produce fresh local food, the world is a more delicious place.
Try again.
We're on. We're on.
Huh?
We are on YouTube.
Hey, everybody.
So we're actually started.
We have actually started.
Is the video still playing?
Nope. Well, it is on YouTube, but nope, now it's done.
Okay,
It's time to welcome everyone.
I can't see it. So, so shall I start?
Yes. And just so you know, and everybody that's watching on YouTube, what we're saying is about 20 seconds delayed from what people will see on YouTube.
Okay. Okay. I've never done it this way before. Okay. Let me start by welcoming everybody. This discussion and presentation is part of our Festival of Learning as we develop Lowell into a learning city, because we're doing this virtually this week. We've had a number of presentations and discussions and film shows so far, and I'm very pleased to be here today to have a discussion about the origins, life, and future of Mill City Grows. I'm particularly honored to be on this Zoom with Jessica Wilson, Francey, Slater, and Lydia Sisson. I can't think of three more intelligent, more professional, more wonderful women to be here. It's an honor to be in the same Zoom with you.
Wish we were in the same room, but
I wish too.
We'll take it. We'll take Zoom.
My name is John Wooding. I'm Professor Emeritus of Political Science at UMass Lowell, but I'm also a long-term board member of Mill City Grows and currently the chair of the board of Mill City Grows. And I've known these three women most of my life, it seems, and it's been a pleasure to know them. So we wanted to take this chance to have a sort of informal discussion about the story of Mill City Grows. And I thought it'd be useful to start with, to ask Lydia and Francey, the co-founders and former co-executive directors of Mill City Grows, how this whole thing came about and what were you trying to do? So I'll turn it over to them to say a few words about that.
Awesome. Thanks, John, for the welcome, and welcome everybody. My name is Lydia Sisson, like John said, and I guess it was about a decade ago that Francey and I were both living in Lowell in a house together, and we were both commuting out of Lowell, working at our different jobs. I was running a farm, and Francey was working at City Sprouts as the director of education there, a school garden organization. And I had you, John, as my professor at UMass Lowell for my master's. And, I really wanted to get more involved in Lowell and in the community that I was living in, even though I was getting up at like 4 in the morning and not coming back until like 9 at night. But So we started talking, John, me, you, and Francey, about just different ways that we could work on food issues in town. And that kind of turned into my final project at UMass Lowell. I worked on a community food assessment with the Food Security Coalition, and Mill City Grows was born in the winter of 2011. Is that right, Francey?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, we started as two volunteers that were really passionate about food, and the city of Lowell kind of came to us with the need for some help to put in a community garden in the Back Central neighborhood. A neighborhood group was really excited about transforming a park with a community garden, the Rotary Club Park, and that was our first project, and we just jumped right in. I still have never been a member of a community garden, so I'm really ashamed to admit that, but Francey and I said, yeah, we'll help, why not? I don't know, did I finish the origin story enough, Francey?
I think so. You know, it was a really interesting time, I think, in both of our lives. As Lydia said, I was working in Cambridge and had just moved to Lowell. I had just gotten married and moved in together with my husband, actually, into the same house as Lydia. So we were housemates. She was farming. I was teaching in school garden programs in public schools in Cambridge and Gloucester. And Lydia would bring home these bushel baskets full of vegetables, and we'd spend the evenings processing food, cooking all these amazing fresh vegetables, and talking about food systems, and, you know, really analyzing, you know, not only our work in our professional spheres, but also our home lives, and how, you know, I felt the same disconnect with Lowell that Lydia did in being a commuter out into another community to do the work that I was passionate about, and also feeling like in my work at City Sprouts, there was a real, you know, the kids that I was working with were excited about the fresh foods and the gardens and the vegetables, but their reality was that those foods weren't available to them in their everyday lives. It was exciting to go to the school garden, but that's not what their, you know, grocery stores looked like, or their refrigerators at home looked like. So food access became a really a clear point for me that needed work in our food system. And so talking to Lydia and, you know, getting to know Lowell better, one of the first things I tried to do when I moved to Lowell was to get a community garden plot. And there weren't any. They're in the fourth largest city in the Commonwealth. There weren't community garden plots available to residents. And it was clear that people were growing food. You would, you know, bike or walk or drive around the town, you'd see gardens everywhere. But it was also clear that Lowell has a very checkered history in terms of pollution and contamination, and that shows up in the soil, and that shows up in people's food. And so that fresh homegrown food that you think should be the most vital and the most life-giving can actually be pretty dangerous, and in some cases poisonous, with the lead levels and other heavy metals in the city. So it became clear to us through all of our late night canning and processing and cooking that our work was cut out for us in the city of Lowell. And Lydia already had lots of irons in the fire and relationships and conversations moving. And I think the two of us at one point, you know, looked at each other and said, are we going to keep talking about this, or are we going to actually do something? And it was a challenge. So we jumped right in and got started. And John was there, and Jessica was there from day one as part of our founding board. And so they can tell this story from here on out because they were part of it.
Before we go to that, can I just ask the two of you, what was it in your backgrounds that got you interested in the food? Were your family into gardening? Was your father or mother's into this stuff? Or what starts that kind of interest?
You know, I'm a city kid. I grew up in New York City. And so we had, you know, a small little patio space. Luckily, you know, it was very rare in New York to have that kind of outdoor space at your home. But we used to grow like watermelons and tomatoes and strawberries and, you know, small things and plants. So it wasn't really in my upbringing. But, you know, when I went to college, it was really kind of the height of the childhood obesity epidemic that was really starting to, you know, become very apparent that we had a problem as a country. and that children were, really, bearing the brunt of that. And so that really was my entry point, was through kind of health and nutrition, and looking at community health. And I started to get interested in, nutrition education. And then I started to get interested in cooking. And then I was like, well, where's all the food coming from? And so I started learning how to garden. And once you start, you can't stop.
What about you,
Yep.
Lydia?
So I actually grew up really rural in the South, but we always had a garden and chickens, but I also similarly in college, right away got involved with the farm that rented land from the college that I went to, and it was a nonprofit farm, and I worked there as part of my like student employment, and I got to do farmers markets, and we did a lot of donations to, in specific, I would donate every week after the farmers market to a women's shelter. And I just got bitten by the farming bug, and I traveled to Brazil and learned about the power of land and how important it is for empowering community members and like really building resilience around and kind of changing the shape of society through putting land in the hands of people that know how to use it and are also especially people who have maybe been disenfranchised in the past. And from then on out, I just knew that I like needed to be growing food. And so I apprenticed at farms. I worked at UTech at a youth farm. I started my own farm. And I really love growing food. It's the thing that maybe brings me the most joy and pain.
So you have a long history here. You come from a deep sense of this. Jessica, since you're here, a new executive director, last year. We made her executive director, then we threw a pandemic at her. You and I we met, I think, in one of the quote board meetings we started for Mill City Grows in the LTC conference room. That's what my recollection.
Yep.
And Suze Cromwell is also on the Zoom here. Why did you get involved with Mill City Grows?
Well, thank you, John. I have, I think it's been such a long, it feels like Mill City Grows has been around forever because we've been doing this for almost 10 years. And, I have been involved because I had two friends who asked me if I would help them do something. And I could not help but say yes. And I think that I didn't know a lot about growing food, and I didn't know a lot about farming, but I saw the passion that Lydia and Francey had for this endeavor. And my background was in nonprofit administration and fundraising. And they said, as we get this going, there's potential that we could do this. We could have an organization. We could help more people grow food, but we need, money, and we need some resources to do that. And so that was something that I knew I could lend that skill. And the thing that I think, really blew my mind when I first met the community gardeners and saw the space and saw how this worked was that Lowell is such an incredibly diverse place. And it's not often that people from all these diverse communities speaking different languages get together in a way that's really harmonious, productive, and community building. And when I went to the community garden, I saw that in real time. I saw people from all over the world who had decided to make Lowell their home, coming together around, one common mission: to grow food, to share it, to make this community a cleaner, brighter, better place. And it was just the power of this activity, the power of gardening, coming together, eating together. And I think all the effort that both Lydia and Francey put into like creating a space that felt safe and welcoming for everybody. And I was just so enthralled by that idea that I kept coming back. I learned how to garden. I dug in the dirt a lot. I helped build a community garden and all these things that I hadn't done before. When I started as a volunteer, I came on board as a staff, and here I am. And it has been just tremendous to see this movement grow in the city. And this is where I grew up. So I am from Lowell, and I think you know, I come from several generations who grew up in Lowell, and the fact that like Lowell, that was once this farming community, became a very industrialized city, and we're now farming here again, is like, just blows my mind. And it's really cool to see that come full circle.
Thank you. That's a great story. A big question for all of you. I mean, I think people who are watching know a lot about Mill City Grows, and we are very grateful for all the sponsorship and support we get from the people in the community. But from the get-go, we framed Mill City Grows as a social justice organization. Yet, you know, people might say, well, okay, you're great at growing vegetables, organic, good vegetables. You teach people how to do that. Why is that about social justice?
Well, I think one of our board members said it so succinctly, that food justice is social justice, and that you really can't have a just society without a food system that is supporting the physical health and environmental health and the social health and well-being of the society. Because, you know, at the end of the day, if we don't have food, if we don't have good food, if we don't have healthy food, you know, that's grown in a way that's responsible and dignified for the people growing it in the land that it's grown on, then, you know, everything starts to unravel. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing the repercussions of our food system, you know, our global chemical-based food system that has degraded the quality of the food, the quality of the land, and the humanity of the people who both grow the food and consume the food. And so that's, you know, that's what I believe. And I think that, you know, we're starting to come around to those ideas as a culture and as a society. And we're seeing a lot more support for food as medicine kind of work. And we're seeing doctors being required to study nutrition for the first time ever. We're seeing a lot of attention being paid to, you know, preventative measures to keep people healthy instead of treatment measures, because we know that lifestyle has so much to do with our health, and food is a huge part of our lifestyle and our culture.
Lydia? You muted, Lydia. You muted.
Sorry, I have a chicken walking around me, so I was trying to get you guys to not hang out, like hear her.
Live this stuff.
Anyway, I agree with everything Francey's said. I think too, like one of the things that is so important is, especially right now, as we kind of think about how unjust our systems are, is that, you know, the system of agriculture in the United States and in so many places around the world is really built on a system of oppression. And so kind of one of the important things about justice is reimagining what that system looks like based on what a community needs. And I think that, and wants and articulates, I think that that's one of the things about Mill City Grows that's always been so deeply important, is that, you know, the spaces that are created are built out of what a community is asking for. And that's the way it started, you know, with the Rotary Club garden. It's like that garden, it was a group of neighbors that wanted something productive, positive, and life-giving in their neighborhood. And it's, you know, all of these things are long-term commitments to keep pursuing the vision of a community, and that changes over time. But like that, to me, that's been one of the things that's been so important about Mill City Grows, is like that justice component of making sure community vision is central to the work.
I share that feeling. We're going to show a little video in a moment, but I was wondering, is there a quick funny story or a moment of great challenge when we first started Mill City Grows, something that came up that was a disaster you had to overcome? Any quick story?
Well, they were all a little bit of a disaster, but then I mean, I think the funniest stuff has been like watching people start out not believing that it's possible and then becoming like the biggest believers and the biggest volunteers and supporters, and just like watching people's minds change, I think, as they like really feel so deeply invested. And I think that's been one of the things that's been cool. Like the first community garden, the number of people like, it's gonna get burned to the ground, you know? Like people just thought that it was gonna get burned, and they just had like so much history that it couldn't be this really important place. And it's been really, you know, it's held by the community, and then those people are the ones that then would call us up and be like, let's do it over here. Now we know it works.
This was Rotary Park, right?
Yeah. I don't know, Francey, you get any
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think that, you know, in the very beginning, you and I came in with a lot of big ideas that were then, you know, grounded in our work with the community, and really, you know, fleshed out and became real, working with neighbors and community group leaders, and you know, eventually working our way up to working with the city. And I just remember walking out of a meeting one day with the Department of Planning and Development leadership, when they basically kind of handed us the key to the garden, so to speak. The garden didn't exist yet, but, you know, they basically said, all right, so you guys are going to do this. Great. Okay. And we walked out and we were like, is this really happening? They really are letting us do this? Like, we get to go work with these neighbors and, you know, bring that imagination, you know, what Lydia was referencing, like that, you know, radical imagination into life. So it was a very powerful moment. I think that story that Jessica referenced about opening day at Rotary Garden on the first day, you know, my fear was that no one was going to show up, you know, that we would have built this whole thing and done all of this work, and that we would just be standing there, you know, waiting on prom night for no one to come pick us up, kind of a feeling. But people came, and many more people came than we expected, and than we actually had space for in the garden, which was really surprising to us. We thought maybe we'd get 20 families, and within, you know, the first half hour of the garden opening, the full 40 plots were full. And so it's really been, you know, a leap of faith, but I think it's been a leap that we've taken with so many others, and that the community has really come together around this vision and this idea that our community in Lowell deserves this, and it is possible here, and it's possible because we're going to do it.
And that first garden transformed the park. Right? I mean, it just transformed the place. And I remember we had our first harvest festival there. Tongas came to that at the time before she. Yeah, I remember those days. And that was 2011, 2012, somewhere.
That was 2012, right?
Yeah.
2012. And Jessica, we have a video about that period, I think.
We do. So I wanted to take us back to December of 2012. We had our first season in Rotary Park Garden. And we were actually, so this is actually a fundraising video, which is kind of funny. And we were asking for a whopping $5,000 so we could keep going to the next year. And potentially start another garden. But I just thought you know, what is so fascinating to me is that not even 10 years ago, we were one garden. And today in 2020, we're 20 gardens with another one on the way, and 4 different places where we go grow food, and we're distributing hundreds of thousands of servings of vegetables all over the city in this year when it's been so sorely needed. So I was looking at these and I thought this would be really interesting for folks to see and reflect on. And Francey and Lydia, my apologies for this flashback.
Yeah, I'm scared.
I know.
I'm scared.
I'm remembering shooting this, and I'm starting to feel really.
But the good news is it's less than 2 minutes long. So
okay, cool.
It will be brief. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Francey,
And I'm Lydia.
and we're Mill City Grows. We transform urban, unused land into lush, beautiful food-producing sites for the community to benefit from.
it's great for us because we get exercise and we really learn the meaning of making a difference in the world.
We're looking to raise $5,000 through our annual appeal this year, and with your help, we can reach that goal. You can support Mill City Grows at many levels. With $10, we can buy seeds for a new low-income gardener. With $50, we can provide basic tools like organic fertilizers and gloves to our garden coordinators. $250, we can build raised beds in our community gardens and school gardens so that all of our gardeners can grow in safe, healthy soil in the city.
With your support, next season we will be transforming 2 lots into new community gardens, as well as installing a school garden and educating hundreds of Lowell residents about the benefits of growing and eating healthy food. Thank you so much for helping Mill City Grows continue to grow healthier neighborhoods and communities in Lowell.
That's great. Can you identify what garden was that we were showing?
It's Rotary and Smith Street.
Right, was Smith Street. That's, okay.
Yeah, the empty lot was Smith Street. And you know, the gardener who we're reading with at the end, Mansfield, he's still in that
Still
garden.
going strong.
Still going strong. I just
Cool.
saw him the other day, and yeah, great.
So we're going to show another video to compare, right? I think, Jessica, you have another one from last year or from 2016.
I do. So I have this one. It was a few years later. We had just hired Di Kim had joined us as we were expanding our mobile market program as our assistant mobile market manager. And he's talking a little bit about his experience in this video because we really wanted to bring attention to the fact that people were learning about growing food. You know, lots of Lowell residents, some of them for the first time. And I think the great news about this is, you know, Di is working with us still today. He is now the outreach volunteer and operations manager. He started this, you know, this new job kind of bolstering our volunteer program literally the week before quarantine began. So, you know, he had major challenges in front of us. But what I think is amazing is, you know, he has been able to rally the community around all the different needs that we have through the organization. And I believe over almost 200 people have volunteered this year, some virtually and some in person, social distance, and really helped us, you know, maintain the gardens, get the school gardens ready for in-person learning, keep the farms, you know, harvesting and gleaning so that some things can be donated to the Merrimack Valley Food Bank and the Lowell Senior Center. So his story is a really awesome story too.
Mill City Grows. It's so important that Mill City Grows provides this food year round. As you can see, we're out here in the dead of winter as it looks like, and despite popular belief, we're still doing things out here. Food access is extremely important. Stats are staggering in terms of people not actually being able to get to a grocery store, whether it be lack of transportation or even folks with low income. Our major production comes out of 2 urban farms. We've got one on Middlesex Street, right in the heart of the city, in downtown, and we've got this beautiful scene out here, almost 4 acres out on the skirts of Pawtuckettville. I think this year alone, we've produced almost 30,000 pounds of food. During the summertime, we've invited thousands of volunteers here out to the farm. We've held sessions in our Middlesex garden in downtown where folks can come out and kind of help with build projects or weeding or harvesting. Not only do we use the spaces as a place for volunteerism, but it's an educational space, and it really builds community and builds connection. It brings a promise that there's a capability to grow food even in an urban environment.
Okay, that's great. So that was 5 years later. Seems much longer ago than that, doesn't it? Jessica, we didn't give you a chance. You've been involved from the get-go with Mill City Grows like I have, but you're now our executive director. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience of getting involved a bit more and who you are and stuff?
Sure. So we had talked a little bit about how I joined the board of directors, when Mill City Grows was first formed. And I joined the team, I think it was this year, 2016, from the video that we just shared. And I came on board to help with grant writing. I was about to have a baby. So I was working part-time, and it was just really fun to meet everybody on the staff and all of our gardeners, and really put their words and their experiences on paper and share those with people, and because I think that it was like their testimony that made it clear that the program could only grow and it could only help more people and get them involved in growing their own food. And so, as I was kind of getting back and doing more work, I, added more hours and started doing more work as the director of development, and started doing some, going out and visiting the farm and getting more hands-on. And a few years ago, when Lydia and Francey, were making their plans, their personal plans, and deciding, as, I think it was a really incredible decision for our two co-founders to decide that it was time for the organization to change. It was time for them to change, and that the really important thing was that Mill City Grows was part of Lowell, and that it was not about them, and that they had done the work of creating a strong foundation. I said I really was felt like this was a place that I couldn't leave, and if I had an opportunity to step in and help take Mill City Grows on the next leg of the journey, then that was exactly what I wanted to do. And I have really, through my experience being part of this, of course, I couldn't not start growing my own food. And that, I think, has changed the way, I see the importance of this work, and having a garden that I can share with my husband and my daughter, especially this year when, we had our own food, and the opposite, like going to the grocery store and potentially breathing in a deadly disease, or being able to grow my own food. Like it never felt so powerfully clear to me before what it means to have control of your own food. And I think a lot of people came to that realization this year who maybe had never dealt with food insecurity before, and really saw so very strongly that having food production, really healthy, fresh, organic, food production in your own backyard is a way that we can make sure we can weather any storm. And that, we've done things this year that we have never done as an organization. But that, I think learning those lessons has been really valuable and important, and it's kind of renewed, not just but I think everybody in our community's thoughts that like what we're doing is so important, and the more that we grow, the more that our community will thrive.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more, but let's actually ask a chance now. I think if there's anybody out there who would like to ask a question or make a comment, this is a show, we're talking about Mill City Growth. We're not actually asking you for money for once, but if you want to give money, you know how to do that. Just go to our Facebook page or to our website and give away. But anybody got any questions or points out there in Zoom land?
I'm just checking out our YouTube. Folks are a little shy in the feed, so we don't have any questions yet.
No questions yet? Okay. So let me press on for a moment. I mean, one of our new initiatives this past year has been the Roots Project, the kitchen and cooking center, which we were designed and developed in our new offices to provide educational training around cooking and growing, sort of merging the question of how you grow organic and good quality food, and then how you cook things, which most people may not be, including myself, have any knowledge of, right? So tell us a little, can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of the Root Project and where that came from, and the challenges we now face, of course, given the pandemic?
I was actually hoping that Lydia or Francey could talk a little bit about where the idea came from, and because they were so much leading the charge of building the space.
Yeah. Well, we started doing cooking education the first year that we launched. So 2012, we built Rotary Park Community Garden, and we launched our gardener training program, education series, and 2, if not more, of those workshops were cooking-based workshops. And at that point, we had some Rubbermaid bins filled with implements and cooking tools. We had our little mobile kitchen to go. And so that really, you know, that was the very beginning, because when you're an organization that's all about growing food, you obviously are going to get to the point where people say, well, how do you cook it? How do you eat it? That you get there immediately, actually. So that was really baked in from the very beginning, that we would not only be teaching, you know, and demonstrating and doing the actual growing of the food, but also the preparation and the fun part, the sharing of that food and having shared meals. And so from the very, you know, first years of the program, we knew that finding a kitchen, you know, having a kitchen home was going to be something we needed in the future. And we made a lot of great partnerships and built our programs, our farm to table cooking classes and other cooking education programs. We did them with Lowell Public Schools, Boys and Girls Club, YWCA of Lowell, so many other organizations that we've bombed in and used their kitchens and made great meals and hopefully cleaned up well enough that they never knew we were there. But I think it was always in our dream and, you know, in that kind of collective imagination that there would one day be a kitchen that was home to Mill City Grows, where all of that food that was grown in the field could come and be cooked and shared and enjoyed by the community members. And so amazingly enough, it's happened. And I'm gonna pass to Lydia to talk more about what that was like, because that was really her brainchild.
And Lydia, while you're speaking, I'm actually going to show some pictures of construction.
Yeah, and I think just like as we're talking, like part of the process for Francey and I as like being ready to move away was also creating some stability before we left. And so we signed a lease in this new space, and part of the vision of this space was having this capacity to provide a resource for the community around processing food, teaching about food, learning together. And so when we saw this space, you know, as usual, Francey and I saw like the most insane space. We're like, we see the vision. This is going to be great. So we moved into the new offices a year and a half ago, Jessica, is that right?
Yeah, it was in April of 2019.
April 2019. And we just moved into the office space. And then we started working with Anthony at Studio 26 and the city and our landlord, Farley White, on really thinking about what was possible in this space. We drew up some designs and started pitching the proposals to different contractors and firms in the area. And the price, you know, changed a lot during that process. And we always say, gosh, if somebody had funded us early on, we would have really underbuilt. But we ended up building out a pretty incredible space together. And it, yeah, that's what it looked like in the beginning. And it's got a fully functional commercial kitchen with all the important drains. And it has a training space, and that's the training space, as well as storage and packing for all of our programs. Our walk-in cooler is outside for all the produce, and there's our ventless hood that was pretty key to making sure that we could put in the right ovens and cooktops. So really you can cook about anything in there, and it's got all the sanitation and wash up so that also in the winter, the farm can be using the space to package. And, you know, it really needed to be a really versatile space because everything that we do is like, got to be able to use it for like 20 different things. So I hope that it is providing that resource for the team. And I, you know, as Francey was talking about those Rubbermaid bins, I cannot tell you how many people who've been part of Mill City Grows have toted those awful Rubbermaid bins and probably still tote them. But, you know, I think that's just like the commitment of everybody on the team.
Folks here to
Oh,
Sorry, that was
you. Cool.
yeah.
But yeah, that just really like made all of those programs, met people where they were, and really shared information and learned a lot from the community as well. The number of things that people brought back into the office and bring back into Root, recipes that customers share with them at the markets or community gardeners share with them. And I think that's the one of the core values of Mill City Grows is just like this constant learning from one another and being a good listener to hear what the community wants. So Root should be just that, and I think it is. I've seen some cool pictures of what y'all have been up to, and just bummed that I haven't been able to eat anything from Root yet. So after the pandemic.
But you know, I think that the kitchen, it's a wonderful project, as you said, and a big project, and sort of a transformation of where we've been going with Mill City Grows. But really, it's a continuation of what you said earlier about Mill City Grows as a social justice organization, because social justice really comes through empowerment. And what we've been doing, I think we've been doing, and what I love about Mill City Grows the last 10 years through our gardener training program, through training and skill sharing in the kitchen, is to give people and acknowledge people have the ability and the skills to take over control of their lives in a way, and particularly as they take over control of their nutrition, which, as Francey said earlier, is the key to so many other things, not just personal health, but a sense of community. So I think this is really a continuation of the social justice focus of what we're trying to do, and it's a wonderful project. I mean, it's a real shame that we were going to launch it in the middle of a pandemic, but we unfortunately joined many hundreds and thousands of other projects that got stuck in the middle of the pandemic, which is a good place, I think, to think about, well, what have been the challenges in the last 6 months or so as we've dealt with that, and what were the opportunities it's created? Because one of the things we've been doing with the City of Learning idea is to talk to people about how awful this is, and clearly it is, but it raises the question in a lot of fields, and particularly in nutrition and food, but certainly in medical care, the way things used to be done didn't work very well. So going back to normal after this is probably not a good idea. So there's an opportunity of imagination and creativity. So I just wonder whether we can speak to that a little bit in Mill City Grows.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think one of the greatest resources that we have at Mill City Grows is that our team is so dedicated to what they do. And so I remember the week before, we shut our offices down, we met as a group, talked about what we saw happening, kind of the guidelines that we were seeing, the potential, crisis that was coming on, and asked ourselves, what should we be doing? And every single person in that room said, well, we're not going to close. We're going to keep working, and we're going to make sure that everybody can eat no matter what. And so that was the baseline for all the decisions that we made this year. And so when schools closed, we knew we had this wonderful resource of these 13 beautiful school gardens. And as soon as we had permission from Lowell Public Schools to access some of them, we used them as additional production space. And we were able to grow enough food in those gardens to feed an additional 40 families throughout the growing season, every single week.
That's a great example of a disaster turned into a plus to a positive. I mean, that's just a wonderful example.
Yeah, and so this was being done by our staff at the beginning, and then as time went on and we were able to invite some more people in, we actually got some volunteers, both teachers, students, their parents, and some organizations that we work really closely with, like the Mission Continues, that came in and helped to do that work. And I think it was something that brought people together when everybody was feeling so isolated, and created this result that really was so needed for so many families. And we've actually, we started a weekly farm share for families in need. And so people can sign up for this farm share at no cost to them. If they are SNAP customers, we're able to charge their HIP benefits, so they don't pay any extra money for it. And if they're not able to pay at all, then we can still give them produce. And we're able to get those to people through no contact delivery. We created this online ordering system that we had never used before, so that people could order this produce. We tried to get the message out in like 6 different languages, because we know there are so many different language communities in Lowell, and we really wanted this to be something that was accessible to everybody. And we've also worked with Massachusetts contact tracing department. And so when somebody in Lowell is reported that, they have contracted COVID and they're quarantining and they're not able to get out and get food and they're not able to afford food, we'll actually deliver it to their house during the quarantine period. And we've done that for, several families throughout this whole year. And we continue to get calls today if a new case pops up. And I think that to be able to really, not just keep doing what we're doing because we couldn't do that, but to really be able to participate in helping our community get through this and helping to make it possible for people to live, healthfully and well and connect with other people in their community has, just made us feel that like all the work that we've done has been worth it like triple fold, because we've really been able to contribute in a very meaningful way to our community as our community has been suffering so much this year.
I mean, literally, Mill City Grows has been helping feed Lowell through this pandemic, which I think there's no finer thing we could have been doing for people's desperate needs in this. Yes. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where we're at now with Mill City Grows at the present time, and then we'll wrap up a little bit?
Absolutely. So with this year kind of took a lot of plans that we had and turned them on their head. And we have had this really wonderful resource of Root, the new kitchen. So we've used that to kind of store and wash and pack all of our produce. And one of the things that we're doing kind of looking forward is what are some ways that we can make produce available to people throughout the year, even when we're not growing here in New England. And so we're testing lots of recipes and preservation techniques in the kitchen to see what are the best ways to preserve some of the crops that we have an abundance of, or what are some things that we can make and that people can enjoy throughout the winter. So, things like fermented things like pickles and kimchi, or, blanching and freezing things like or creating a product like gnocchi from some of the potatoes that we had. So all those are things that our staff has been doing throughout this time. And as we're looking forward into 2021 and beyond, we're going to be doing two different types of planning. So one is some business planning around what it makes sense for us to do with that space to really continue to get produce out to our community. And then the other piece, which, I'll chat with Francey a little bit here too, is we are going to do take 2 of our community food assessment of Lowell. So the original community food assessment, that was a big piece of the work that Lydia did alongside Francey before Mill City Grows was founded. Really helped us to understand what the food landscape was in Lowell and who didn't have access to fresh food and why. And so we want to take a second look, and we're working really closely with lots of partners in Lowell on this, including the Greater Lowell Health Alliance, to see what has changed about the food landscape, especially because of the pandemic. And what are some things that organizations like Mill City Grows and other food access and food justice organizations can do to fill new gaps that have been created and really ensure that we're creating pathways to get fresh food in a culturally competent way for all of the people in our community.
That's great. But there are still many challenges. We don't know when this pandemic is going to end. There are real issues about the economic situation that most people in Lowell and the region find themselves in. There is, of course, the whole question of making sure we are inclusive and diverse in our work, which we've always been committed to, but it's always a challenge, and it's our responsibility to work on that, I think. But I think many of us I hope many other people who are watching here recognize that Mill City Grows, well, I'm biased. I love the organization. I have in the very beginning, of course. But I think one thing I would say is that, and it's often pablum, but I think we all mean that, this organization wouldn't work this well if we hadn't had currently and in the past the most wonderful group of staff working there. I mean, they've just been fabulous. And I know everybody always says this about those organizations, but I think and I've been in many, and this is unique, the commitment, the sense of joy and pleasure it is working with the staff and with the volunteers. And I think it's true, I think, Jessica, that there's still plenty of opportunity for anybody watching to volunteer with Mill City Grows. We take all comers, and there are volunteer opportunities. My dog just arrived and left.
He's ready to work. He's ready to dig.
Yes.
It could also have worked with that. We've always had a wonderful board, and Jessica was formerly chair of the board back in the day, I remember. I think the board has been really a major asset, a hardworking, deeply involved board. And lastly, I think that you know, we wouldn't and couldn't do this if we hadn't had a huge amount of support from the university, the city, our sponsors, foundations, and granting agencies, which have made this still a robust and financially secure organization that is really working for social justice. And I think that that's why I love being part of Mill City Grows. Francey, Lydia, our co-founders, our originators, some last comments, some last words.
I think that I'm really at a loss of words for the gratitude I have for Jessica and you too, John, but really Jessica holding this organization down. I can't imagine what this year has been like for you, taking on a new role, a very big leadership role in an organization that you've been a part of from day one. But when you're the boss, it's a different experience. And in a pandemic and with just the uncertainty that that brings, I just have a lot of gratitude for you for sticking with it. Not everyone would do that. You know, I think that that's a real thing. And I think the staff, like what you said about the staff of everybody showing up, it's the culture of the organization. And it's what John said, that people love what they're doing and are excited to keep coming back every day and doing it. I think that's a pretty special thing. And, you know, it's work that I miss and that I will always have love for in my heart. And I'm excited to keep engaging with the work and to remain a part of this community here in Lowell and watch and participate in the growth and continue to you know, struggle on for a food system that really does justice to our community and that represents all of those radical imaginations that we carry with us of what our world could be and should be.
Thank you. That's great. Lydia.
It's always so hard to follow Francey. I'm so much more concise than her.
I ramble. I'm
my
sorry.
Poems are not quite at my fingertips. Yeah, no, I think I miss Mill City Grows too in a lot of ways, but I think the thing about it is it's in the fabric of Lowell now, and I'm so thrilled just to watch from afar as all of this is unfolding. And I have so much gratitude for you, Jessica, and the entire team of people who we love so much, who are really like doing the day-to-day work and have always been doing the day-to-day work to keep Mill City Grows growing, and all of the gardeners and community members that participate in so many different ways. And I think, you know, the work at Mill City Grows has transformed me as a human being and really changed the way I think about the world and what it feels like to be part of a community. So Lowell is an incredibly special place, and I just hope more people will get involved and keep kind of sharing your knowledge and power, so that Lowell and Mill City Grows can continue to really push us as humans to create a better humanity, because we really need it, and we really need people to be humble and kind and part of community. I think it's just, we need to be in something together, and we all got to eat a lot every day. So let's get behind that. But yeah, no, I'm super excited to see what y'all are up to, and it's been really cool actually. Like in some of the statewide work that I'm doing, just, you know, always people say, "Oh, Mill City Grows is such an incredible organization," and people are always commenting just how well it is going, and they kind of laugh. They're like, you know, we're like so proud of Mill City Grows for just like keeping on without you. And I'm like, yeah, they've had it. Like, so it's been really cool now in my 2.0 life, or whatever this is.
Your 2.0 life. Jessica, any last thoughts?
Oh my goodness. Well, I will say that my pandemic has not been boring for a single moment. I have never wanted for like something to do. So I don't understand that experience of this year. But I've said this before to Lydia and Francey, like they created a space where I had the best professional experience of my life, and I was not able to walk away from it. This has been so, personally gratifying for me, and I think in my vision of, Lowell as my home and my community has changed so much by being a part of Mill City Grows and seeing people come together in this way to really, take care of each other, take care of the land, and really take care of themselves. I think being part of our environment and being part of like the experience of growing food is really something that I think is personally healing, and it has been for a lot of people this year. And to hear those stories from folks, what it's like to be able to get out of the house and go to the garden when they don't have anywhere else to go, when they live in a cramped apartment with 5 other people, but they can still get to the garden and have that moment has been really special for them. And hearing that has, it's like the foundations that we've built so that people can have these moments of peace that they've really needed this year, and the life-giving food that they've needed as well. And I think just kind of in keeping with what both Francey and Lydia said, like, we are here talking about Mill City Grows, but Mill City Grows, it doesn't belong to any one of us, and it certainly doesn't belong to me. And I think one of the things I am, and I will be so proud of, being in this position is that we have so many people on our staff who are fantastic leaders in their own right. And they are making, the future as they see fit. And that there are so many people in the community that want to be leaders and volunteer leaders in their gardens and leaders in a food movement. And that if we can be a small part of giving them the opportunity to realize that and do that, then that, I think, aside from the hundreds of thousands of pounds of food, like that's the greatest thing that I know I've contributed to this community. And that, honestly, they've given back to me in allowing me to be part of it. So, and I think all of that has just become so crystal clear this year. When we haven't been physically close to people, the relationships that we have meant so much. And so I'm just very grateful that I've been able to be part of this group, and that I am in this position. I feel very privileged to be able to do this in this incredibly wild year that we're all having. And I really do believe that, being able to create a solid food system in our community is going to help us to weather any storm.
Thank you, Jessica. And if I may have, in the rare moment, the last word on this, I also want to echo about Jessica, because when Lydia and Francey said that they were going to move on and no longer be the co-executive directors, I was really worried about who would get in place and how it would continue. And when we found Jessica, and Jessica took the job and became executive director, it's been just a great year for me to be working with you. And I'm sorry you've had to go through so much hell with the pandemic, because that's really hard to do. And lastly, I would just say that we did this event and talked a little bit about the history and background of Mill City Grows under this umbrella of the Learning City. And I became involved in that because it's the same impetus, the same motivation, the same goal is in the Learning City as it is in Mill City Grows, because this is really about social justice. It's about breaking down, to use the phrase, the classroom walls, so that learning becomes not only fun, but also more democratic. Because I really think as we look around the world as it's broken, and it is indeed broken, the more people who are better informed, who learn to live with, as Lydia just said, with tolerance and kindness. And we can do that by taking and tapping into all of the things that go on in Lowell and showcasing them as something which is an opportunity for the community to enjoy, to learn from, and to share skills about. I hold on to that very dearly, as much as I hold on to what Mill City Grows set out to do, has done, and will become. And it's been one of the great pleasures of my life to be involved in. It really has. So I want to thank you for starting it, Francey and Lydia, Jessica, for keeping it going in such a great way. And here's some more Mill City Grows. So anybody watching, please feel free to talk about Mill City Grows, volunteer for Mill City Grows, and even if you really have to, give us money. That would be great, because it's just a wonderful organization, and we're feeding Lowell. And I wish you all of you out there good health and safety in this current climate, and some hope for the future. It will get better. It will get better. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, you three wonderful women. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
John.